Catherine said. These
Yeah,
things.
because it was overflowing for
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Monday, August 16th, 2021 Selectmen's meeting. Will you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nobody for public comment unless there's somebody on Zoom, Catherine?
Zoom's not up yet, so
Okay.
we're good.
Jason, could you do the approval of the warrants?
Absolutely. I make a motion to approve payroll warrant 2207 in the amount of $240,349.55.
Oh, second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just the one comment from the last meeting that I'm still waiting on, what we're charging to the town administrator salary. I did not think we had approved charges against that salary yet. But maybe it's a short-term thing, so just to get some kind of information about that, because it continues.
Yeah, we'll get some information on that. Any further discussion? None? All in favor? Unanimous. 4 in favor, 1 absent. Bill warrant, Jason.
I'll make a motion to approve bill warrant 2207 in the amount of $366,719.58, which breaks down to the town of $101,920.28. Water and sewer, $26,851.22. Payroll withholding, $6,396.28. Light bills, $209,043.08. And grants, $22,508.72.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? None? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes of July 27th, 2021. Anybody read those? And
Yes, I reviewed the minutes of Tuesday, July 27th, and I'll move them for approval.
I'll second that.
second, motion and a second. Any further discussion? None? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Approval of Board of Selectmen minutes, August 2nd, 2021.
Let me see if I read those.
Anybody read those in?
Yes, I did.
And,
I did read those, and I would move for approval of those.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? None? All in favor? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Next up, appointment of Kathleen Hashem to the public health nurse position effective 7/29/21, or $35 up to 6 hours a week. We have a recommendation, actually, she was appointed by the Board of Health, so by the Board of Meeting. Board of
Correct.
Higher-
I don't think we vote the Board of Health
We don't need to
employees.
vote on that.
Do we?
They appoint their own people, so we'll deal with that. Appointment of Annie Schindler for Environmental Program Coordinator, effective 8/23/21, for $42,000 annually.
I'll make a motion for appointment of Annie Schindler to the position of Environmental Program Coordinator. It's a full-time position, starting 8/23/2021 at $42,000 per year.
I'll
With
second
benefits
that.
as voted.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan?
Yes, is this a new position?
Yes, it is. Mike, you want to weigh in on that,
Sure.
please? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. Mike Dempsey for the Conservation Commission. So this is not necessarily a new position. This is an expansion of the Conservation Commission agent. We changed the title. It's funded both 50% by our fee account from the commission, and the other remaining funds come from the VZ revolving fund. The position is going to continue to do the duties of the conservation agent, but also work with the planning board and department and the director of the department, and also spend about 17 hours a week working on VZ Park programming.
Dan, follow-up?
Yes, what's the allocation? Is VZ Park gonna foot the bill on the salary, pension, benefits?
So we have an agreement that was set up, I think, before you were on the board, where the town was agreed to pay the benefits, since it's a full-time benefit eligible position. But in some discussion with the accountant, we'll be paying 50% of the benefit cost from VZ Park revolving fund, and not paying for liability insurance, kind of an even swap.
Is this an employee or a 1099?
No, it's an
contractor?
employee.
And what's the reason for now? I mean, I was on the board before, and I'm on it again. There was a gap. Why now? What's the need for this, and opposed to last year and the year before and 5 years ago?
Sure.
Why?
Well, the duties under conservation have expanded. I've basically been doing the job for the past, I don't know, almost a year since our previous agent quit. And the job definitely requires 10 to 20 hours a week. So there's no less work to do on conservation. And then we, under the advice of our previous finance director, said, think about adding that, making it a full-time position. So we did. Covering the VZ portion is going to enable us to do more community outreach. And then finally, in discussion with Rebecca of our department, she will definitely be using the person in any free time that isn't covered by those two things to do planning-related work. So it kind of fits in very well. And we have the available funds this year to cover the salary portion, both from VZ and the fees. So we want to take advantage of that to see if it's a long-term viable possibility, because obviously the job has to continue to generate the funds to pay the salary.
Will the conservation fees go up to sustain this position? Is that
No.
contemplated?
Perhaps. I mean, we haven't raised the fees since 2014, so it's been 7 years, but we're not looking at that right now.
So you don't feel you need additional revenue?
We may,
Right now?
not right now. You know, maybe in the next fiscal year, we may have to raise the fees, but right now, the volume is covering what we need to take in. It's just how sustainable is that going to be, because it varies with the amount of development that's going on in town.
Let me ask you this, I mean, it seems like it's VC Park and then there's conservation. I mean, was any consideration given to maybe 2 people and 19 hours or less to avoid paying, benefits and pensions?
Well, Again,
Because those soft costs are not soft, they're hard.
no, I
They're
understand.
hard on the taxpayers, and that seems to be where all the growth is, in healthcare especially. It escalates, and it's not subject to Prop 2.5 health insurance costs. So that can escalate, and so I look at those things, and can it be avoided with, 219 and unders, I mean, it seems like there's two jobs here, to me.
Mr. Chairman, can we make a point of information?
I'm just asking, he can.
No, I know, but I think there's a point of information necessary.
Go ahead.
This position was discussed, I know you weren't on the board till just a couple weeks before town meeting, but it was discussed over the course of, I want to say, 6 weeks or more prior to the annual town meeting. The discussion focused on such things as how to attract qualified candidates to jobs such as conservation and be able to keep them employed here and not have it become a revolving door. Conservation has become an increasingly important area in our town as far as, watching over things and mandates and things that can go wrong and liability. And so the decision was made, with the past fire instructor had been spoken of, and then it was brought up again, it was discussed. The fees were looked at, and also was discussed the idea that by combining this with a job that is required at VZ Park and then funding part of this position through VZ Park, it's a good way to introduce the position into the budget without unbalancing it, was the bottom line. That's just informational.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and that's just, it takes care of the salary, but not the pension and the
Well,
benefits.
If the person does it,
So again, who's got the numbers? So you're asking for 42,000 here, or someone is, or it was approved on the
was
budget. And I wasn't here, so whatever I wasn't here for,
You were here for town meeting.
yeah, and I didn't like the budget. And I'll tell you, and if I got up on everything I had an issue with, the moderator would have thrown me out the door, let me
I
tell you.
concede the point.
So I had to pick my battles, if you can believe me on that, all right?
do.
So,
No, I don't believe you on that one.
at some point, they turned on you,
I'll give you that.
all right? So what costs are above and beyond the 42,000? Does anyone know?
Health insurance.
oh, it could be anywhere, we don't know, but it could be anywhere from 4,000 a year to 10,000 a year, depending upon what kind of insurance requirement the person has, and then what choices they make, and those kind of things.
Then longevity. If they come from another municipality, would they be eligible potentially for a pension sooner than later? Or is it, those are issues,
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
so.
Mike, did you ask her about, is she going to take the medical insurance? You didn't ask her?
No.
All right.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a couple points. I like the Bachelor of Science with the focus in resources and concentration in environmental conservation. And then I also like her work as stewardship as an ambassador for her University of Connecticut, I believe, which means she's a people person, which is good. We need people who can represent the town well. And to Selectmen McDonald's point, I think that it would be good to have like a 6-month review of how this is all working out, cost-wise and otherwise, fees coming in from conservation, divvying up the hours between tasks. How is it working out? I feel like we're going to really benefit from this, but so I'd be very interested to see, like at 6 months, how's it working out for the town? So.
Okay. Mike, you can handle that for us?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? None.
Do we make a
There's a
motion?
motion and a second.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed?
Ooh,
Opposed.
3 in favor, 1 opposed,
one
and 1 absent.
you want to pause the meeting a minute? It's haunted.
Turn the mic off on your laptop.
Listen to him.
Did that do it? Yes, now I'm muted.
Okay.
Are we good?
Thank you, sorry.
All right, thank you. The next appointment of Danielle Burrow of Haverhill to the Groveland Police Department as a full-time officer effective 8/27/21.
I'll make a motion for favorable action to appoint Daniel Burrell to the Groveland Police Department for a probationary period effective August 27th, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Dan.
Is this a, again, same line of question I had for Mike, is this a new position? Is this an expansion of the police department, or is this a replacement for somebody?
No, this
that-
is this, according to the police chief, the appointment fills one of the two recent vacancies created as a result of retirements.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I don't know how he was able to pull this one off, because this person is very well qualified, and right now, full-time police officer in West Newbury. Now, congratulations to the police chief to be able to pull somebody so well qualified. Any further discussion?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead.
just add that, I guess it'll be Officer Burrell, or Danielle Burrell, comes to us, as he said, fully certified, background in many areas, missing and exploited children, drug trafficking, criminal investigation, search and seizure, a second language Spanish for law enforcement possibility, it looks like, suicide prevention, just an impressive array of background information, and I feel that we're very fortunate to get this individual in our department.
Okay, the motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, appointment? 4 in favor, 1 absent. Discussion and possible vote. Town Administrative Search Committee comments and requests.
Was there something in our packet on that? 'Cause-
There was just a correspondence.
Oh, that's way at the
I
end.
have expected Joe to be here.
Okay, let me just look at that. It's at the end, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have anything, do you, Rebecca?
Just a minute. I'm just going back. I did see it.
And what,
Just wanted to find it.
Jason, you want to read that out? Or you want me to read it?
Go ahead, read it.
This is from the, from Joe Demore, from the committee. The chair, myself, accepted suggestion tonight for the select board to vote on releasing funds of $6,000 to pay Community Paragam Incorporated from reserve funds. Selectman Castanell has moved to vote for item on tonight's Selectmen Board meeting. The board voted in line with the recommendation supported by our town accountant and Greg LeBrecq. Ruth Rivard has confirmed the Finance Committee will meet on August 11th, and key agenda item is this issue. I anticipate the Finance Committee will support the Select Board and vote the matter. Very special thanks, Ruth, on your outstanding Finance Committee board for your due diligence, care, and flexibility. Rebecca, for establishing a working relationship with the consultant and aligning this resource with our committee in manner that will keep our mission focused to deliver candidates by September 17th to 24th. See you on Thursday. Catherine, please print this as correspondence for the next select board meeting. So, we don't have, I see any more comments from that.
That's it.
So, we already took a vote on it, so I'm not sure that we need another one.
Like I said, I wasn't sure if Joe was gonna be here tonight.
Excuse me?
I wasn't sure if Joe was gonna attend tonight, so I left a space for him just in case.
Okay. All right. Next, Council on Aging van. I know Rebecca's been working on this. Maybe you can just enlighten us on what you got for us.
Thanks, Rebecca Oldham, Economic Development, Planning and Conservation Director. So I have been working with Denise to pull together the documentation that would be required to send the documents out to bid. We did find that you are not able to trade in the actual vehicle per our disposal, surplus and disposal policy that was adopted by the Board of Selectmen. In order to do so, there would have had to been a permission stated specifically within that document. So that will increase the price significantly as well. So we have tried to begin pulling together those bid documents and then also the specifications per what Denise and the Council on Aging are looking for. The only thing that I would say is that I need to have the Board of Selectmen sign off on my designation to be able to utilize Combis. In order to place a document out to bid, you need to post it on Combis or, and then also in the newspaper 14 days prior to the bid opening, et cetera. So in order to get that log on, I need the Board of Selectmen to authorize me to do so.
Okay, then we want to make a motion to authorize Rebecca to follow through with it.
Well, just a clarification, should we be appointing Rebecca as the interim procurement agent for the town because she's the only one who's qualified right now? Would make sense. And then you need a permission to access a computer database?
I just need, however, whatever the board decides, but I do need permission for that. I do need a designation for the town to utilize Combis on behalf of the town to place bids on such.
What did it spell that
So it's a
out?
document that you need to sign essentially that authorizes me to put bids up there on behalf of the town.
Okay, and could you spell this document, the word combite?
Combi, COMMBUYS.
C-O-M-M-B.
And if the board wanted to, they could potentially vote to allow the chair to sign the form if they so wanted to, and I could submit that and carry on with that process.
Okay,
Okay,
what's the wishes?
Can I ask a question or wait
Sure,
for the
no.
discussion?
Fire away.
Rewind, you mentioned Board of Selectmen decision or policy on not being able to trade it in? Something like that? Can we change that? Can we unring that bell and trade it in? Seems like we ought to. Otherwise, what do you do? Put it on the, Craigslist?
So there's other ways.
What do you do with it?
There's other ways of disposing of the vehicle. You can do an auction. You can put it on muni bids. There's other mechanisms that are spelt out specifically in the policy. So if you'd like, I can give that to Catherine. She can put it on the agenda at the next meeting, and you can decide how you'd like to revise that.
Well, you mentioned it would cost us more. Well, I want to pay less. So if trading it in, you have some leverage in making the deal, you got to take this, or we don't buy that, then maybe we, do a little arm twisting and horse trading. So if, why would the, I mean,
I'm
maybe
wondering
there's a
the
reason.
same thing.
Why would the BOS, and what BOS was that?
It was in 2016, I believe, and essentially the theory is that if you were to auction off the vehicle and or put it on muni bids, you would probably get more for the vehicle than the trade-in,
Oh.
because they're going to look at the trade-in and not necessarily pay you the most it could be worth, because you're getting something in return. That's the only thought process and reason I could think that you wouldn't trade it
Perhaps
in.
not on a specialty vehicle like that.
Right.
Maybe on a fire truck. Maybe not.
But the issue with the whole thing is that if you were to auction it off, or if you were to put it on muni bids, whatever monies that were generated from the sale of the vehicle, even if it was more than the trade-in value that's currently being offered by the current company, there's no ways to take those funds without town meeting allocating them
Goes
for
to
the
general
purchase of the
fund,
Council
right?
on
Ah.
Aging. So that becomes another issue of trying to circumvent it that way. So to change the policy is an option.
Well, does anyone have an opinion on, can we get a good trade-in value or not? I mean, that's the $5,000 question.
Can you get something together for us for the next meeting on that? I don't even know how they would value that, a specialty vehicle like that.
Mr. Chair, can I suggest this? Can you put it out to bid with trade or without and see what we get? Can you do it that way and then we get the approval on it, so, at a later point in time? We can change our policy, improve it. So if you posted it, looking for a bid with or without the trade-in, here it is. Can they bite on it both ways?
So I think you would want to put it in your bid document that you were in fact considering a trade-in as part
Yes,
of
we're
that.
considering it.
But without having that option through your policy, I think that might be problematic. So I would say that you would want to amend your policy prior to putting it in your documents that you're allowing for such, because then the prices will vary different, very.
Mr. Chair,
Suggestion?
Go ahead.
I think we need some flexibility on it to go both ways and play it both ways potentially, and if this board would consider it, I think we could change our policy specific to this. I don't know, why can't it just be
Non-anticipated section.
ad hoc?
Policy that you're referring to
Right,
is
but-
under what category?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's under a Board of Selectmen policy, just like your code of conduct, just like
Okay.
all of the other ones, your designer selection law.
Can I suggest we visit that under the not anticipated? Because I certainly didn't know we had this policy, and I didn't anticipate that it would be necessary to act tonight, and we could look at it under not anticipated.
And I think back then, it may have been related to the fire truck trade-in or something,
I'm sure.
So, and again, I think it's a case-by-case basis. I'd hate to just say, we have one policy, we all wear shoes, we all wear size 9. I'd like to see these on an individual
Makes
basis.
sense, we'll deal with that.
Depending on how much money's involved.
Can you stick around?
Yep, and you can do that for sure, because you have options to get rid of a surplus, and that's A, B, C. So if you have trade-ins permissible, the Board of Selectmen still have the ability to say that is the mechanism in which we are disposing of the surplus supply.
Yeah, and I'm glad we know about it. I mean, we have the option. So I'd like to retain the authority to decide thumbs up or thumbs down on it. But in this case, I think they put it out and say, we want to consider trading it, see
I
what
think
the
we could,
see what the best
we
price
could
is.
deal with that under items not reasonably anticipated, and we could amend the selectmen's policy if the board is so willing.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, before you go,
We have to do a
what's
motion.
the timeframe for putting it out to bid where we could come up with, have the van here?
So the document I just gave over to Denise for review this evening, so all of the advertisement documentations, the agreement, the contract, things of that nature, and she was pulling together the specifications. So my hope was to get it out in August and open bids in September.
Okay. So you need a vote from us to authorize you to proceed with this?
With the combis specifically.
Okay. Again, spell that again for me, please.
COMMBUYS.
UYS. I'm glad you asked.
How the combis.
Okay,
Combis, oh, duh.
combines. And then,
Commonwealth buy.
combines.
It took me a minute.
And then you need a second.
Combine.
Then you're gonna need a second vote to authorize the chairman to sign the paperwork.
Correct. Well, we could
Please.
combine it, I think. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Rebecca, the interim procurement agent, and authorize her to utilize combis to put out the bid for the senior van, and to authorize the chairman of our board to sign such paperwork as necessary to keep this flowing.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just for the van. Don't go spending money.
For the van.
Just the van.
Just the van. So it sounds like you want to do a case-by-case basis.
That's my opinion. I don't speak for anyone else.
Well, that's my opinion too, but,
There you go.
so. if we
Like to
could,
know about these things.
Catherine, can you repeat the motion, please?
I didn't write it down.
I can repeat it. I made
Sorry.
a motion to appoint Rebecca, the temporary procurement agent, and to authorize her to access Combis to post the bids for the senior van, and to further authorize the chairman of the Board of Selectmen to sign such paperwork as necessary to keep the process moving.
I'll second it.
And seconded and stated.
Jason already seconded it. So that's without,
Sorry, Jason.
that's just a blanket. You're looking for a blanket, for her, just a blanket procurement officer, not just a case-by-case,
Yeah, interim, we don't have anybody, and she's the only one certified. It makes perfect sense.
I think it ought to be on a, I'm going to oppose that. I'm going to do it on, I'd like to see it on a case-by-case basis.
I'll oppose it too, so, I mean, we've got a stalemate, so.
So,
So make amend the motion then.
it's your motion. You're going to amend it.
No, I don't have to. You can.
Okay, we'll amend it, we'll amend the motion to,
For the senior
Make
van.
it specific to the van.
specific to the van. So there's a motion for specific to the van. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a second. Any further discussion on that?
Can I just say the friendly amendment is to make Rebecca the procurement agent for the purposes of the senior van, one case.
Okay, you're doing a friendly amendment, so we don't need a vote on
I'm
the
just
amendment.
making it clear.
You're adding that. Okay, so, any question on what you're voting on? All in favor?
No, really.
Unanimous, 4 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you. Council on Aging tent location. Catherine, you said that Rennie was here to weigh in. How come we don't have him up on the screen?
We're having trouble with the connection again. The video feed needs to get fixed.
Okay.
Rennie, you there?
I am there.
Hello.
Rennie, you there? You're coming in pretty good. We got a discussion on the tent location for the Council on Aging. Can you enlighten us?
I certainly can. So if you've been around Town Hall, sometime recently, you'll see the myriad of red flags up the front, knocking out the electric. There's also irrigation, sewer, and the gas lines don't appear to be in the in either of those locations, but there's certainly enough electricity, water, and irrigation heads that would make it quite difficult to have the tent in that area.
Okay. Was there an alternative?
I mean, we talked about next to, in between the two buildings in the parking lot, adjacent to the side entrance to Town Hall, where the utility room is. I would say, to best describe it, it would be the old finance director's window office right there in the parking lot. That way they would have access. They could come up the ramp and come in the front, or go up the back and go in, to be able to use the facilities. It's not the ideal place, but it probably is the best one that suits the town. I don't know if Denise had other ideas, or if someone else had other suggestions. I know they wanted to get it on the lawn, but it just seems like everywhere we turn to do something on the lawn somewhere, there's electrical, gas, water, etc. in the way.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Rennie?
Is it,
Go ahead, Dan.
how many parking spaces we're gonna lose? Is that gonna be a problem?
The tent is 20 by, I believe it's 20 by 40. So it would most likely take up all those spaces closest to the library entrance right there. But there's
handicap.
plenty of parking in that area, so.
So what, maybe a dozen spots, maybe?
What is the-
I think there's 6 spots, 3, and that it would still, I believe it would still leave the 2 or 3 handicap spots open, but it would take up the other 6 normal spots in that area.
So is it gonna in any way obstruct access to the library? I mean, You just walk right by it? I mean, there's a
I
corridor
would
there?
say very moderately. No, it's not going to be near the ramp. It's going to be in the parking area, so it won't obstruct access to the library, but it might take up a half dozen spaces.
So the only negative there would be you'll lose a few spots and people have to get out of their car and walk a little bit further to the library. No big deal, right?
Correct.
And it'd be on a smooth surface, so less likelihood of tripping on things and wouldn't have to worry about ruining the grass or watering it or cutting it or any of that,
Correct.
right? So, sounds good to me.
Anybody, Jason, you got any questions for him?
Yes, Rennie, I know that when I spoke to Denise, she was more interested in the spot right outside the current COA director's office. I know there's one line that runs down the middle of where that tent would be, electrical line.
Yep. There's the electrical line, but there's also still irrigation on that side of the lawn. There's two main lines that run there to go out to the other side of the front side of the building. They're kind of tough to locate, but you could try putting it there. The electricity's in the middle, and on either side of the electricity is the irrigation lines. And like I said, they're tough to locate because they're not metal, they're plastic, so you can't really get a hard number on where exactly they are.
Till you drive this bike through it.
Correct, most likely. With our luck, definitely.
Kathy?
Well, I have questions that probably Rennie can't answer. I guess what I'm wondering is, it seems like somebody ordered a tent without figuring out where it would go, or where it could go. I'd like to know how that happened. Do we know that?
How they ordered the tent?
Yeah, well, we don't have a procurement officer, and a 40 by something tent got purchased, right?
I believe the tent has been in the works since when Lynn was here.
Correct. So that's what I'm thinking, they had in mind where they wanted it, and now we're trying to adjust that. And I guess my concern tonight, listening to the discussion, is that the people that would be using the tent aren't being allowed to weigh in on if they have a couple of choices. I mean, if that is a choice and a parking lot is a choice, and maybe there's another choice, I'd like to hear from the folks that are going to be using this tent, where would they most like their constituents to be? I mean, I am a constituent. I don't know how I'd feel about going out to a parking lot, not being able to be on the nice green lawn. Maybe I wouldn't like it. Maybe I'd feel like, why am I in a parking lot? So I feel like the people that are going to be in charge of using this tent, the library people and the Council on Aging, should definitely be very involved in deciding the site, given information from whomever is checking for what's underground. And then I will support where they want the tent to go. That's how I will do it.
I think Catherine can weigh in on about the purchase of it.
I was just going to state that it was purchased with COVID funds, and it was relatively short money, so it didn't have to go through procurement. It was always assumed that that area between the library and town hall could be used until we found out the size of the stakes that have to put it in, and that became prohibitive to put it in the place that it was hoped to be.
All right, I mean, I'm all about problem solving. If there's another way to stake it versus driving them deep into whatever's under the ground, I would like to see that looked at as well. I mean, there might be another way to stake it, but again, I'd like to hear from the Council on Aging and the library, as I understand, would be the people that would be using this tent, and we're running out of weeks here, so if they want it in one place versus another, I'd like to hear from them about why they want it one place versus another.
Rennie, I got a question on that location. You still on?
Yep. Man,
Will we lose any of the handicap spots out there where the tent is going?
I don't believe so. I think we can fit the tent in an area that would minimize any of the handicap spots. It would kind of abut the handicap spots there. You might lose one if you wanted to put any kind of barrier or anything there, but I think we'd be fine as far as we wouldn't lose any handicap spots.
So if we lose it, we can always move it to another location, close proximity to the library.
I don't, as far as I know, I don't really know too much about the tent, to be honest with you, other than it's 40 by 20 and the stakes that hold it are 30 inches. The stakes are 30 inches tall.
What's the width of a space, about 10 feet?
Well, 8, I think our space is a standard 8.5, 9 feet.
Okay.
I have a question.
Kathy, go ahead.
Rennie, you said you're not worried about the gas in the front, just the electrics and the water?
Out in the grassy area, there's
Yeah.
electric. There's many electric lines for the lighting and the signs and the data relay between the buildings.
Right.
I just think the risk is going to far outweigh the reward if we get the tent out front where they want it.
Well, I just wondering if, I was speaking to Greg LeBrecq about it, and he was like, said, well, you can turn off the sprinkler heads. And I know that Pentucket has put up some tents, they're up right now, so maybe confer with them about the installation of the tents, so we can get some better information about it. Rather than, before we start moving things to a parking lot, I'd like to find out more about the installation and make sure that we can put it somewhere that these Council on Aging and the library will be mutually happy with.
Mr. Chair.
Dan, go ahead.
Rainey, do you have a diagram or any drawing that shows all of the lines in the ground? I mean, sounds like it's.
I don't have any. I don't have any institutional knowledge of the irrigation lines out there because they were installed so long ago. The company that manages our irrigation lines, Irrigation Now, had nothing to do with the installation. Unfortunately, the senior guy that operated the irrigation lines for us recently resigned. So it's been tough trying to locate them, and even talking to irrigation guys that they install irrigation now. They have what they call a tracer line that they put on the irrigation line so they can be tracked. But that technology wasn't, thought of when they put these irrigation lines in. So I will say, if it was just the irrigation lines, I mean, it wouldn't be a huge fix if we, popped one irrigation line here or there. But remember, I do agree, if you have it out in the front lawn, there's going to be times where, the irrigation goes on early in the morning and late in the day. I don't think it's going to interfere with their use. But, it might be a little damp out there in the morning or even mid-morning, especially as we get later in the season.
So it's your opinion there are too many, conduits in the ground, electric and gas and pipes, and it's just,
Yeah.
they're too numerous to walk around?
There's-
You'd be banging
there's
spikes.
just a lot out there. There's like I said, if you saw all the electrical flags that are out there, there's many electric lines. There's irrigation lines all over the place. It's just very numerous in most of the areas that we were talking about.
Are they flagged now? You say they're flagged?
Once we turn on the irrigation,
Yeah,
you can go out
there's
front.
red flags for the electricity that's out there.
So it's too risky in your opinion? It's just not the right spot?
In my opinion, it is, but I'm not the Board of Selectmen. But I would, to me, to get a tent up and risk, potentially severing a line or getting electrocuted, I don't, it doesn't, to me, compute, but.
It's not worth the price of a cheeseburger?
Right.
Okay.
Well, those stakes, Rennie, to my recollection, have to go in 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet, so they certainly could grab some of those lines. The sprinkler system probably only 4 inches below surface, and who knows where the others are.
Correct. Yeah, some of the electric lines are only a foot or so down too because they're low voltage. The data line, obviously, you don't want to mess that up. I mean, it's just.
And Rennie, originally there was more utility lights out there. I think they were removed, they were maybe knocked over, so those lines are probably still there, and there's probably no record of those.
Correct. That's what I've been told.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So, Rennie, my thought is that I appreciate what you're doing, and I do listen to what you have to say. But I also listen to the things that you're not sure of. And I guess what I would say, I believe Greg LeBrecq was in charge of putting that irrigation system in. And again, he's offered, to talk about it, to look at it, anything you need. And they have put tents up over there at Pentucket. So they have experience with installing them. So perhaps, now I'm forgetting, who's the facilities director at Pentucket now? Bill will know.
Hayden.
No, Hayden?
I think it's still Hayden.
Isn't it? I'm thinking of another name. Okay, well, not the name I was thinking of, but the facilities manager at Pentucket perhaps could take a look, and I would like to include the parties that want to use this tent to make sure that we take into account what their vision was and what they were trying to accomplish. Because I think that's important. I mean, sometimes maybe if it's not going to work, it's just not going to work, but I'm not going to go dump it in a parking lot without first making sure the place where they really wanted it to go is just simply a no-go. Right now, it looks like it has some obstacles, but could we check a little further? Could we speak with Greg LeBrecq, who was here when they put in the irrigation system, and also the facilities manager in Pentucket, they have giant tents up all over the place there, and I'm sure that outside of that high school, there's got to be a lot of stuff in the ground, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
is there based upon the electric, the water, the irrigation system, the experts have already looked at them and determined that that's not an option. Is there a motion? We make a motion to move it to where it was suggested out by the library?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to install the tent in the parking lot where designated, and this, caveat, if Council on Aging doesn't want that, they can come back and say they don't want it. But, right now, it doesn't look like it's feasible or worth the risk.
A motion, is there a second? I'll second that. Rennie, just a question in discussion. This is something you've run by the Council on Aging Director?
Oh, we've walked the property a few times.
Okay, all right, so you have. Any further discussion?
Yes, so are they aware of Plan B and C and maybe D? I mean, were they aware of the fallback position to the parking lot and didn't object?
I have given them that option. I know that, like Selectwoman Castronellis has said, it's not the ideal. I get it's not the most ideal area. I'm sure they would much rather be on a nice green grass surface. I completely agree in that. But, given the circumstances, with it being this late in the year, I think getting it up now fast as possible so they have some use of it before it gets too late in the season is probably more paramount than getting the perfect spot for them right now. Maybe if we do a little more research and we get some more information, we certainly could, in the future, put it on the lawn somewhere at that time. But I think to deploy it and get it up for them as quick as possible, the parking lot makes the most sense. I get it's not exactly ideal for what they're looking for, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I have one
Jason, go
more question
ahead.
for you, Rennie.
Yep.
When they put up a permanent structure like that in the parking lot, are they gonna require the Jersey barriers?
I believe that they do want some type of barriers for the protection so that cars won't be running into them.
And do you have the Jersey barriers?
I do have some Jersey barriers. I think if need be, we could put a couple out there just, for protection safety.
Thank you.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor of the location that's suggested out in the parking lot by the library? All in favor? Three in favor. Opposed? One. Bill?
Abstain.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain. Three in favor, one abstention, and one no. Next, 46 Washington Street, maintenance walkthrough. I thought we had paperwork on that.
Kathy's handing it out. Sam was going to join us tonight, but he is unable.
Okay?
I didn't email it.
Okay.
Okay, this is Kathy and Jason. Jason, you want to just enlighten us on what you found over there when you visited this with Mike Dempsey, Rebecca Alderman, and Sam Joslin?
Found a building that the floors are suspended from the ceilings, which I found extremely unique.
The floors are what?
Suspended from the roof. I've never seen construction like that in all my life. Thought that was exceptionally unique. But there's still some stuff in there that needs to be removed. I believe the water department still has their 2 trucks there, plow. There's a canoe in there, along with a bunch of, it looks like.
When did you go in there?
adhesives. When did we go in there?
It's right on
A
this
week-
thing, August 9th.
On what night?
August,
August 9th.
August 9th? Yeah, I know they've been moving some things out this last week.
Good.
I don't know what, but they've moved some stuff out.
And I know that the big reason why that they wanted us to go over there was because one of the furnaces had failed. And they were talking about shutting it down and winterizing it, which Sam recommended against because they didn't want the freezing and the thawing of the mortar between the bricks and the fieldstone to deteriorate any more than it already is. And so it was recommended that we left the heat on, which he believes that the single furnace that's in the basement will suffice, but it would have to be monitored. He recommended having a temperature monitor, something that would be hooked to Wi-Fi, so it wouldn't require additional people to constantly go over there and check on it, only if the alarm was sounded.
That dirt floor doesn't pose a problem, it's moisture.
Not for just being there, no. Not at all. And then if we were to use it, then there was talk about using dehumidifiers, which I think are key for any place, because I have one in my basement, and my basement's great.
Anybody got any questions for Jason or Kathy that were in on that tour of that building? Dan?
I don't know if they know the answer to this, but what are the plans for that building? Short term and mid-term and long term? Is it just gonna sit there and we're gonna carry it?
There's been some discussion about trying to utilize it for different things, leasing it out. So it's being evaluated as we sit here discussing it.
Then we,
so Phase 1, this year we appropriated at town meeting enough money to survey the land so we can know for sure the property that we own there, because there's a little bit of uncertainty about the exact property line between the town and where the church property abuts it. And the second part of the money that was appropriated from CPA is to clean up the area around the building, because it's been left to become an eyesore at this point. It's kind of an abandoned town building. If you look at the list here, at one point, there was talk about using part of this building for storage. At this point, the building inspector would recommend that any storage should best be put in the basement, and then to do that, you'd want to put a concrete floor in, right? He said a concrete floor would do the trick. He doesn't want a lot of paper up on the 3rd floor. For obvious reasons, it's an old building, and if something were to go wrong and you have an attic full of paper, it's not going to end well. But But there's a few things that need to be put in place. A post needs to be put in the basement floor to secure a place where there's rot and it could cave in. So we could include that probably as part of this year's work. That's a small thing, right? The remote thermostat is a small purchase. I suppose we could include that. And then the next step would be to get someone in to take a look at, this is the last of the mill buildings. And the question is, how much would it take to preserve this building? If we can't preserve the brick exterior, fix it, obviously the building will never be able to be used for anything. But the next phase would be to get somebody in to take a real look at it, tell us what we're up against, cost-wise.
Who's gonna maintain the heating system? Is it something you can pump like glycol into it, make sure it doesn't freeze? But I mean, to maintain a building that's vacant through the winter is,
Well, there's a furnace there.
poses all kinds of problems if it cuts out.
Well, that's the point of the remote thermostat. And then we said there'd be like a weekly check,
So who's
maybe.
gonna do that is what I'm asking logistically. Who's gonna make sure that heat's on and doesn't cycle off and freeze the pipes and cause
Right.
water damage and everything else that goes with it?
Right.
Huge risk on a vacant property. Most insurance companies don't like to insure vacant properties because they're,
Well, it's a town-owned
High
building.
risk.
Well, the town has insured this building in its current policy, so it's a town-owned building. We're responsible for it.
there's,
It's our responsibility.
I don't know, I'm not so sure I wanna heat a vacant building. I mean,
If you don't heat this building this winter, it will cause damage. That's the point.
because there's structurally, the mortar needs to be repointed or something, so are we gonna have to pay to repoint it at some point?
It's a continuing amount of damage. Every time the bricks freeze and thaw, you're causing more and more damage. I mean, if you wanted to go over and look at it with the building inspector, I'm sure he'd do that with you.
If we're not gonna use it, rent it out or sell it or
We
tear
can't rent it
down
in
or
the condition
something.
it's in.
Just, seems like we need a plan before the winter as to, if we're gonna rent it out, that'd be a good option in my mind.
Not rentable.
Mike would like to weigh in. Mike, can we get you a microphone?
So just to answer a couple of Dan's questions, the heating system is hot air, so there's no real danger of water pipes freezing.
Okay,
The
thank
water
you.
can be shut off
Thank you.
in there. And so the plan would be to keep it set at about 45 degrees, just so it's not freezing and thawing.
Is it gas fired?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no problem of, oil running out. I think as Kathy mentioned, the both immediate,
So there's no water in the building that's on. So there is no freeze damage,
no,
risk,
no.
period. There's no
As
water.
far as the water,
Water's
no.
off.
Right.
All right.
And also, as far as Kathy said, the need for the post and the monitor system can be covered under the current CPA project because there's small cost.
You keep the heat
And-
on 50 or something, I mean, it's just something, right?
Yeah, it's
Just not even?
minor. What?
Yeah, just to keep the bricks from freezing, just the,
Yeah.
the condensation.
Yeah,
and the moisture.
45 degrees even.
Is there a dehumidifier over there? Is that really the issue?
No, there's no dehumidifier right now.
Need one.
Eventually, yeah. But I think,
Now?
no, I don't think so. But I think the plan is that we would have to have a secondary phase here to really see, number one, what needs to be done to the building to keep it going long-term, and then what potential uses is the town going to have for it. So, again, as you said, what's the future? Should we sell it? Should we use it for something or whatever? So that's why we designated the phase one of the CPA article that was approved at town meeting, and assuming that we'd have to have a phase two to check into some of these things.
So you're working on this. Is it active or it's
Yeah. no,
next year?
It's active. We're ready to do the things now that the CPA article designated, the outside work and then the small inside stuff. that can all be accomplished very shortly. And then I think Rebecca is ready to put together a proposal for some kind of, what is it called, Rebecca? Feasibility study.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to,
Let me just weigh in and ask a question. The dehumidifiers, obviously you don't need those in the wintertime. But the dehumidifier, is that something that could be covered under the CPA also?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Dan, go ahead.
is it worth looking at whether or not this is a historically significant building, and can we get some grant money to renovate it? Is anyone looking in that direction? Is that even,
We could,
is that even like a glimmer of hope?
yeah.
You know, I mean, if it is historic, why not get some
Right.
money? Free money, you know?
We have Historical Society weigh in on?
Yeah, I think it needs to be a powwow with, multiple minds on, and maybe look at all directions on it.
Follow that
unless-
up with them.
If they want to get involved with it, I mean,
Uh,
before I recommend tearing it down.
Jason?
The only other restriction we might have is the DEP from the fact that it's a Superfund site.
It's still super
So
fun
most likely, we would not be able to sell it, I don't believe.
yet.
So we're gonna have all sorts of restrictions, and then everything that we do with that building, we're gonna have to check with them every step of the way.
There is no restriction on 46 Washington Street.
Done?
No.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions for Mike? None?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
We did want the full Board of Selectmen to kind of by consensus agree that we're going to keep that modest amount of heat on, put in that remote monitor, and the suggestion was perhaps to ask if the highway department, because they drive around, if they're going by there, to check the place once a week, just walk in once a week, take a look-see, make sure nothing looks out of order. And we also had a follow-up question. I'm not sure whether the highway department would be the one to ask, but it was noted that the pond, that there's a door on the, I'm not sure what you call it, the pipe that the water flows out of the pond. The door was removed, draining that pond. We're not quite sure why that door is going. You know how they control the flow of the water through the various dams coming down from Johnson's Pond on down? The door that normally is there is gone.
Flow control.
That's it, thank you, flow control, has a technical name. But this is town property, and this is, water flow, and whether this was removed by the town, we don't know, or whether it was removed by some other party, we don't know. We'd like to look into that, find out what's going on with that.
Okay. We can forward a question like that to Highway, see if they know anything about it. Is Rennie still on? Rennie, you still here?
Yep, I'm here.
Rennie, the question came up on 46 Washington Street, the old Highway Water Department building.
Yep.
Behind that, the dam for the water flow seems to be one of the boards is missing, that's causing the low water supply, the low water flow.
Draining the pond,
Straight in the pond.
yeah.
Yeah, pond is low. Do you know anything about that?
I do not. You talking about the Mill Pond where the Salem Street Dam is?
No, this is by the old Highway and Water Department building on Lower Washington Street.
Okay, so that is part of the Johnson's Creek runoff. I haven't noticed that. I haven't been back there since very, very first time I was shown that area. So I couldn't address that because I really don't have any. I haven't been back there in over a year or so.
All right. Mike, do you have something on that? No. Mike, wouldn't that fall partly under conservation, the level of that pond? Maybe we could take a look, you could take a look at it with Rennie?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Rennie, you got that?
Yep.
Okay. And then maybe you guys can figure it out. Maybe
Sure,
just
we
rot
can
it out
follow
of
up
there.
on that.
What's that?
We can follow up on it for sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, go ahead.
on that issue, I mean, who who is the boss of the water level of Johnson's Pond? Who determines that? Because there are other issues, such as what I refer to as the expense for the muck raking, and pulling out all those weeds. So if the pond were a foot higher, would that minimize some of the weed growth and our expense on abating it? And I'm not so sure it's going to work, but again, time tells all. So, if you remove a gate that holds water back, then the pond's going to be lower. So, I mean, seems like all of the gates should be known.
So I solved your problem.
Well, you addressed a problem. You shed some light on it. It's the weakest link in the drain. Somebody's got to put the drain back in. Or the water just keeps escaping out of the pond, and it might help the fish and the wildlife to get that pond level higher. I mean, certainly I'm not in a butter to the pond, so I don't want to be big-headed here. And if you live on the pond and it's flooding your basement, certainly I'd want to hear from you. I don't want to be inconsiderate to anybody, but if it's no skin off anyone's nose, then why isn't the pond water level higher? That's
So-
the question.
Yeah, so Rennie and I work together on maintaining the level of the pond. Johnson's Pond right now is at its highest level. It's controlled primarily by the outlet that's at Washington Street, and it's as high as it can go. Rennie and I,
It's where the canoes are, to the left, where the road is.
yeah, right
Mill
at the
Pond,
bottom of
between the
Easy
mill-
Park, right, where the boat launch is.
Okay.
So we've talked about raising that up more, but some kind of study would have to be done because there are septic systems that people get nervous about whenever the water gets higher.
Should they have a septic system, within so many feet? Are they grandfathered in? Are they even septic systems, or are they old cesspools? What are they?
No, there's septics.
Yeah, what are they? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, but I don't want to belabor the point, but conservation should make sure that stuff doesn't get in the water,
Yes,
whether it's detergent or staphylococcus.
right, or nitrogen, phosphorus, right?
So it seems to me we shouldn't turn a blind eye to septic systems too close to Johnson Pond.
No blind eyes are being turned, it's just
Thank you.
pre-existing conditions that
Oh.
you sometimes have no control over.
All right, so you and Rennie are working on
Yes.
Johnson's Pond level, and if you can raise it a little bit, you will, and you're gonna look at the flow.
Mill, that's
at
new mill
The new mill
pond.
pond.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure that we need a vote on that.
No, just consensus. Is there any concern on the board with this list of what we saw and what we thought needed to be done in the short term?
No, I think we already discussed all of that.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, Bagnell School challenges and requests for help. We got a note from James Day, the principal of the Bagnell School, about some problems at the building.
Yes.
Everybody have a time to read that over? Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, yes, oh, thank you. Well, why don't we let Jim Day wait? Jim, you there?
I'm here, Mr. Chair. How are you?
I'm okay. We received your paperwork. Do you have a remedy for any of these?
So yeah, I guess I'll start with just I wanted to be able to share with you just some of the recent issues that we've had at the school. The town has been so wonderful in the time I've been there, in some of the projects that we've had to go about doing with the abatement of the classrooms from year to year, especially in two of the wings of the building, the older wings of the building that are starting to have problems in the classrooms. So it's just something that I wanted, being it, as the town building, I wanted to make sure that you were aware of the problem that's going on there with the abatement, with the floors. We recently had a room with all the rain that we had in July that flooded. Water pooled on the outside, got under the tile. So we've lost some classrooms because of this. So some of the areas that we have been able to remedy is, and Rebecca and Rennie have been a huge help in communicating with them. As I said in the beginning, just so many people in town over the years that have helped out. And the landscaping piece that I talked about in there, I know they came down and took a look at some old decking we had in a courtyard, and a deck had been built years ago. They took a look at that, which has created a termite problem that had me have to evacuate a classroom last year because of termites. And they've been great at looking at that, try to remedy that. I had another landscape company come out to look at some areas. So there are some of those areas. I think in my letter as well, Mr. Chair, I talked about the summer camp stuff, and that's something that Mr. Castaway and I have worked together over the year to try to figure out some remedies to that as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Jim Day, Principal of Bagnell School? Dan?
Mr. Chair. How you doing, Mr. Day?
I'm good, Mr. McDonald. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. As always, how much? How much you need? It's all about money, right? So do you have any cost estimates, or do you have any suggestions? Should we just,
Yeah, so some suggestions that I'll have, and I don't know if Rebecca's there, and I know we've talked, maybe she can be able to pipe in on some of this, but, the rooms, to abate a room is above $10,000, and I believe, according to the regional agreement, anything above $10,000 is what the town looks at, under $10,000 what the district looks at. So some of the things, that I've been looking at, I think there's a capital improvement plan every year. I did talk to our facilities director, Bob Danforth. Greg Hadden also has been helpful with this, with supplying the town with a capital improvement plan. And I do believe the abatement of the rooms has been part of that. They did get a cost, it was in a range of about, I think it was in a range around $75,000 to do 3 rooms this year. And I know the money was not available this year. That was the bid that we got, and it looks like probably Christmas is how long it's good for, till around the Christmas break, because we'd have to have the time to be able to get in to do those rooms, and hallways. So our hallways are starting to go too, that I've had to either shut down areas or put carpeting over some of those areas until we can remedy that. Another thing that I had emailed Rebecca about is, I've been hearing a lot about, we hear on the news this infrastructure bill that was just passed, and I don't know what kind of money would be out there in grants for us to be able to look at for town buildings like that, so.
Anybody else? We're way into the principal. Bill?
Yeah, hi, Jim, it's Bill O'Neill here. I know in the past couple of years, we had allocated money, partly from the summer program, cash flow, and other areas, to do like 2 or 3 rooms every year. And I guess that didn't happen this year.
Correct.
But up until this year, we had been doing 2 or 3 rooms a year every year, right?
Yeah, and by doing that, we've made great progress in getting our rooms in good shape. I mean, we walk around there and there's a lot of rooms that are in good shape because of that. My concern and worry now is obviously the room that flooded. That was, that room was fine until the water got in there, but there's 2 or 3 other rooms that the tile is coming up right off the floor, just cracking up. And then the hallways. The hallways are a pretty big project to do. So I just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of it, because I don't want to see us get behind on too much of it, or, our population is growing. We've had a lot of new enrollment of students over this summer with a new middle school, high school. that's gonna happen. We're gonna have new students enrolling in an elementary school and moving into town. And it becomes a challenge when rooms have to be shut down and we can't use any of that space. So it's been wonderful every year to be able to just keep it up. Bagnell School is not too much older than the high school that we've all been talking about for years. And I think us keeping up on it for years is something that's gonna make the Bagnell, hang around a bit longer.
Does anybody remember how we totally funded those projects in the past? I know some of
Yes,
it was.
free cash.
Was it free cash? And I know we used
One-time
cash from
money.
the summer program too. They always throw off a lot of cash.
Right.
But we dropped the ball this year, I guess. We didn't.
Well, we
plan.
didn't know whether we'd have any free cash available. We still don't know, really.
We didn't have a summer program.
Yes, we
last
did.
year.
Oh, last
Last
year we
year
did.
we didn't have a
You're
summer
right, this year we do.
Storage. Mike Dempsey, is there any space available up at VC Park to store some of the summer program, items, short-term, till we can find maybe a longer-term solution to help these guys out in the short term? Potentially? Can you look into that and maybe get back to me? Let me know how much square feet you have, and maybe we can work something out on a short term. Water bubblers. Jim, do you have an idea how many water bubblers and what the cost is per bubbler?
I think when we're talking about the water bubblers, this would probably be the biggest project on the list, because we're talking about the testing that was done some years ago on the water that's coming into those bubblers. So those bubblers have been shut down because of that. So we're talking the piping and some of the faucets that are coming into the bubblers. So that is a major, major project. That would be something that, like I was referring to earlier about the infrastructure bill that has come out, because that is such a major project. You'd have to get into walls, the piping that's coming in there in order to have those bubbles working. And I'm not an expert in it. I know some people have talked to me about I think the police station in Groveland actually has one, those the freshwater dispensers that can be attached. I think the one concern is, anytime you go into an old building and you start tearing up walls or going into an area, you find stuff that you weren't expecting to find. So I think that is a major project, but it's a big concern for the kids to be able to have that fresh water.
Right. Refresh me again. What was in the water that tested?
It was lead.
Lead.
So we shut it down. They were tested and it was shut down because the levels amongst what the state recommends was not appropriate. So all those bubblers were shut down. So we do not have them available for the kids to use anymore.
Now, how old is that building?
Well, Mr. John Osborne was just by the school today to drop me off discs from the original plan of the building, and it was a 1964 date. So it was around into the mid-1960s. That's why I was saying, high school is in the 50s, I believe, and the Bagnell's in the 60s. So not too much older. And that's why my concern is we've done so well with keeping up on some things, and if we don't, that's my concern.
When was lead outlawed?
78.
78? In water pipes? Really? In paint, yes. But in water pipes, I thought it was long before then. I'm amazed at that. That's I don't think that's an easy problem to rectify. And
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, just
I haven't gotten to.
if
Yep.
the pipe coming into the building is lead-free, which I would hope it would be. I mean, wouldn't it be cheaper just to run a new line and just disconnect the other ones? I mean, to rip them
Yeah,
out
and
and change things structurally doesn't seem,
Yeah, all this is really, I appreciate the discussion.
you know what I mean?
and-
Bring them in over the suspended ceiling tiles and just run them high instead of low. I mean, anything can be done. It's just how much money and path of least resistance, But,
Right.
but if you're gonna keep two classrooms closed, isn't that a problem? Doesn't that create a crowding issue, and then, in light of the COVID and the social distancing and everything else, don't you need that space?
Yeah, yes, so we do need the space. I've been creative with it to try to figure out different ways. We do have some staff members, like I have one classroom that has 4 staff members in the classroom. They're more service providers working with kids. This is the teacher that lost the classroom because of this. And then I had to move a 3rd grade classroom to another room. Last year, when we had the termites because of the thing outside, I had a classroom that actually had to be displaced to the gym for a little bit until I could find another space. So it's a constant, when these things come up, just being creative to find ways to not disrupt the education of the students. But right now, like I said, my concern is it just keeps going, and then we do run out of space with the size of the classrooms. We just had to create a new kindergarten class because the enrollment has gone up so much. So that took up another classroom. So that's where I'm concerned
And
with.
follow-up?
Yeah, that just, I think if I heard Bill correctly, Selectman O'Neill, and I'm not pointing fingers or anything. Last year was a rough year for everybody. But if that ball was dropped, and I think I heard from Kathy that it used to be paid for out of reserves, right? Is that what you said?
I'm waiting for my turn to speak.
So do we need a special town meeting or warrant to make this happen because it wasn't appropriated in the omnibus? I mean, is that the only way to cure this, is to get the funds appropriated to just go fix this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like a good option to just, leave the classrooms empty and not have clean water for the kids to drink and go through the school year. I mean, it needs to be fixed. So you can defer it, but what's the point of deferring it? It needs to be rectified.
Kathy?
Yes, hi, Mr. Day, how are you?
Hey, Kathy, how are you?
I'm wondering, you purported that you had a flooding of a classroom. Does the town insure the school building or the district? I'm not quite clear on that point.
Yeah, that I don't know. I'd have to look that up and see, or talk to the facilities manager or
Because
Mr. Lebrecht.
That should be able to get restored through insurance, whether it's through us or the school district. That's covered in insurance, I would think. What I'd like to suggest, I'd like to come by and actually see physically what you've had to shut down and where you've had to move things. I mean, I remember from 2 or 3 years ago touring the building, I know there were some empty classrooms, but perhaps now with what you're describing in your letter, that's disappeared. I would like the opportunity to take a look at everything. I don't know if other members of the board would like to come, but I would like to take a look at that. And I would also like to ask the Board of Selectmen to support me in requesting that we look into if we have any CARES Act money left that we can use to purchase a storage unit that could be put near the school, because I'm guessing some of this storage problem with desks and all is perhaps COVID-related, or we could argue that, and perhaps we can use some CARES Act money if we have any available. So I would like to check into the CARES Act money. I'd like to find out who carries the insurance on the building, and I would like to have a tour of the building.
Sounds reasonable request. CARES Act money for the storage building.
And who has the insurance? Yep, thank you.
And one other thing.
Yep.
The water bubbles might fall under a CARES Act
No, no.
as well. I mean, like Dan was talking, or Mr. Day was talking, freestanding water bubblers.
Yeah,
Right, it could be.
for health reasons.
For health reasons, absolutely.
Well, right, water bubblers in schools are shut off right now anyway. You have to use the,
Because
They're freestanding, the water-
Contaminated,
right, they're not allowed to, they've shut those off, and then you have the push-button things. Fill your water bottle.
Old technology.
No, new, they replaced them at
I'm
Whittier.
saying, so we get the new technology
Yeah.
into the,
Correct.
Yeah.
because even if they didn't have the lead pipes, maybe they still would be non-functional under the current situation with the COVID.
So
Okay, so what else was it, Kathy? CARES
want-
Act, to see if they'll cover the,
Catherine's checking on insurance for that flooded room, whether it's our town insurance or whether it's the schools. I'm not quite
gonna
sure
check
of
on
that.
and then what was the third thing?
I'd like to tour the
Water.
building, because I haven't toured it in a couple of years. and
Water
see-
bubbles?
See what's
We got it,
closed
got it.
off. Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy
We're
to,
eligibility.
I would love to have you all come by the building. I'm happy to do it any time that works for you and meet you at the building and walk around so you can see what it looks like and see what's going on and be able to see for yourself, not only some of the challenges, but, you know, some of the also great things, like I said in the beginning, Mr. Dempsey, Rebecca, Rennie, the great help they did with the new inclusive playground that we have out back, the fence that the highway department came and built. So there are some great positive things that when we are doing this together, we're making some great steps down there. So I'd love you to see all that too.
Okay, we'll get some answers on that. And you were looking on insurance, Catherine?
Yeah, I just emailed the representative to ask her. She might be able to find it faster than I can.
And I thought the CARES Act money was gone, but
I don't know about that.
we'll get some answers to that. Jim, anything else before we close?
No, I just wanted to thank you all for the time and, you know, I would, you know, if there's ever a time that you would like me to, you know, come before you or do some for updates on how the school is doing, I'm more than welcome to do that. Yeah, I think in one of my emails I said, if there's ever a thing like you'd love the kids to come and show some of the things they're doing at the school too, you know, I'd love you to be able to see that too, because there's some great things going on at the bag now, and so I'd love you guys to all be a part of it.
Well, thank you for weighing in, and I think this is enlightening on some of the problems down there. It reminded us of it, and I appreciate you weighing in. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate all your time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion regarding email from Attorney Levinston dated 8/11/2021. Kathy, you had a couple of questions you wanted to ask our town attorney about this email that we got.
Correct. I believe we need to get some clarification, and so I would make a motion to table this until we get that clarification.
Okay, you were looking for what is being referred to here in the email and what the town attorney wants us to do about it. Was there
Correct.
anything else?
That's all, and for that reason, I would move to table this.
Okay, motion to table. Is there a second on the motion to
second it.
table?
I'll second.
Jason, all in favor of tabling? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Asleep?
No discussion, right? So I guess.
Well, not on a motion to table. There's no discussion on a motion to table.
Motion, so I just, yeah, we're tabling it for what, I guess?
To get a couple of questions answered from our town attorney. So,
What are those questions?
what's that?
What are those questions?
What the town attorney wants us to do about it, and what is, what in this email, what is Attorney Livingston referring to?
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Are those questions I need to ask or is someone being assigned those questions?
we'll get to that.
Oh, all right.
Thank you. So,
So just for clarity, Mr. Chair, I was just, we're tabling, but we're gonna, it's to ask questions and get counsel.
and then get counsel. Okay, so there was it was 4 in favor, 1, I don't know, and
I'll support it. We need to know.
5 in favor.
We need to
Motion
know.
motion unanimous.
Oh.
Approval of process for employees reaching weekly hours. And that came up at the last meeting. We'll get some answers on who was approving hours when employees were over their hours. And it was, my recollection, it was town treasurer, the administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen, and what was it, was there another one?
No, I don't think so. I think that in any other area, they have a department head that would be there. That's the only area where now, unfortunately, we don't have a department head.
Okay,
So-
and Catherine, do you remember, was there another one, or just those two? Oh, two, okay. And I know you were working on this, but the administrative assistant, she's always asked me as far as that she's out of hours and whether to approve it or not. So I've been doing administrative assistant. Town treasurer, can you enlighten us on that?
I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure Ellen signs off on that for Michelle, but I could be wrong too.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, and
Go ahead.
subsequent to that, I did see an email, and it might have been from the accountant, saying that there had been an occasion for the assistant treasurer to run over. So, I think later tonight, we're going to discuss the Pentucket assessment, and you'll see the reason for the concern.
Okay, so we got the answers to that.
Yep.
Article to the State House for Finance Director repeal discussion.
I still haven't received anything back.
So it's
Nothing back yet. Okay,
And that's from town council?
From anyone.
I'll be on that.
okay.
Do you need me to follow up, Bill?
No, I'm gonna
You're
follow
gonna
up.
do it? Okay.
Ian, go ahead.
Doesn't that require a bill to be sponsored and pushed through? Is it Lenny Mara or?
I thought the,
Yes.
Who's
I thought the
the
town-
point guard on this? Who's moving the ball?
Either
I
one.
don't know, I'm asking.
Either one. But
Okay,
we-
so the phone call should be to one of their office saying, are you moving this along?
No,
so
no, no,
we can
we've,
get it to
we've
you?"
got it, we've got to get them this paperwork that we're
So they don't
request.
even have it.
They don't even have it, is what I understand. To request this change in town government, and have it run through the State House and signed off,
We have to can it and then they sponsor. it.
yes.
So whose job is it to can it?
I'm
Town
gonna
council?
find out.
I don't
okay,
know.
Bill is going to address, look into that. Next up, waste management contract discussion.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes. So I took the liberty of copying some of the documents. I know Dan wasn't on the board for the whole duration. Chairman Watson, you and Selectman O'Neill already have these documents, and Jason, you do as well. This is just to revisit where we've been on the whole issue of the trash contract. We have executed the contract. And if you thumb through some of this, there was some concern about plastics and numbers on them, and I've included a document that clearly explains what types of things are not
Some
recyclable.
of that stuff.
Yeah,
Dan?
so I thought that would be good information, because I know there was some concern that this new contract was not maybe a good contract, wasn't going to allow us to recycle what we can, and it does allow what we're allowed to recycle. I did speak with several other towns. One, Sterling, is in the process of going out to bid. I think they're going to a pay-as-you-throw, moving the cost completely, I think, out of their town budget, because it's such a budget buster. But they were paying, they had a town of 7,500 people, a little bigger than us, 7,500 households. And they were paying more than we are. I've looked at neighboring towns like West Newbury and their new contract, and I've done a little back of the piece of paper calculation prorating their contract onto our households. And on our households, with the kind of collection we're doing now, we'd pay more on their contract than we are paying on waste management. And I've spoken with the state, environmental people as well. And I mean, the bottom line is that we need to take some action. And I'll let Bill maybe talk about his chart now, if you want to.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I had more data. I only have really monthly data from 2019 on.
Okay.
I wish I had it from 18 and 17 to really lay over, the year-over-year comparisons of where we were, where we're going, and then try to take some estimates and extrapolate that out for the rest of the year and see where that line moves. Right now, you can see that basically in January, it all starts about the same spot, very, very close. Dips down, and then you can see that the 2020 line is the orange line, which is the COVID year. And obviously, that's kind of off the charts. It's above everything. But normalized, the 2019 is the blue line. And you can see we're trending above that with the gray in 2021. There was a slight dip in May, and I'm not sure what that anomaly was, but it's right back in June. Like I said, it'd be really nice to have 18 and 17 to overlay into this chart to really see the movement over time. So hopefully by next meeting I can get more of that monthly data and have even greater analysis of where we've been and where I think we're going to be heading. And then if I can get some cost, I can plot that against these as well to show you where the costs will go, or where it's been and where it's estimated to move to.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
I think I have a file from Waste Management that I need to forward to you. It's a big Excel file. It'll have, I think, 216. 216 was a partial year, so it'll have 217 and 218.
That'd be great.
Okay, I can forward you that.
I know the one they gave me has the whole year. It's from 216, but it's the whole year. So it doesn't give me a month-by-month breakdown that I can chart.
Oh, okay.
And see that flow from month to month and the trend that it makes.
Let me look at the files. He had one that had a lot of tabs on it. I don't know if I sent you that one.
No.
Okay, I need to send you that one.
Yes, send me everything in the kitchen sink.
In the
You know what I
kitchen.
mean? Yeah, I love
Could
data.
pass
The more
these
data,
down,
the
please.
better.
Thank you. Jason. One more. So on this, this, again, is some of the information that the board, we actually reviewed all of this as we were looking at ways to save money on the trash contract. And let me be clear about this. The only way you save money on a trash contract, there's two ways. One is to try to encourage everybody to redirect as much trash as possible into the recycling stream, because the cost for recycling, as you can see on this chart, is far less. Even when we're paying for recycling to be disposed of, it's a far lower cost than the $90 to $100 that we're going to be heading for per ton on regular trash. I've looked on the state website. I know that we seem to be like the only town that I could find that was allowing anything over 64 gallons of trash to be put out and collected and paid for on the tax rate. So the thing to think about is that the trash contract is going to be a budget buster unless we start to take action now to restrict the number of barrels of trash that are collected without someone purchasing a bag to help pay for this cost. And it's not just our contract. I've looked at several other towns' contracts. Many of them are higher than our cost per ton because Waste Management, as I understand, has its own facility to take things to. So the cost per ton in other contracts is higher than our cost. And the curbside pickup cost is high everywhere. It is what it is. It's the prevailing wage. So we discussed voting officially to make the restriction to go from the 4-barrel to the 2, and then we have the information to purchase the zero waste bags. The Board of Health has already chosen the color and the bag cost. And I think on this thing, he was estimating that we would sell them for $3. I believe the Board of Health determined they were going to sell them for $1 more, $2.50, I believe, something like that. But you can see it does bring in some revenue, it does help. I feel like we would be negligent in our duties on the Board of Selectmen if we don't address this critical issue now before too many more months go by. I'm not saying that we issue the edict that you can only have 2 barrels next week. I'm saying we pick a date going forward that we're going to implement this program. We've discussed this now, I think, at least 4 or 5 meetings. We have all the information that we need to pursue it, and I think we should move forward on it before we incur a deficit in our trash budget.
Dan, follow-up question for her?
Yeah, I don't think I have all the information I need. I'd like to know the over-under on, month by month. If we get a monthly tonnage and a monthly bill from Waste Management,
You have that on page 2.
so what's the projection if we follow the trend line on the deficit? I mean, how much money?
We're going to spend more than we have in the budget.
How much? I won't quantify it. Do we?
I don't know, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000. Does it matter if you go over? We go
Well,
over.
it does matter. If we go over 5,000, then, we don't go from 4 to
It's not
2
5.
without
It's,
going to 3.
it's more than 5,000. It's significant. I mean,
So-
if you want to take the proposal home and look through all of this,
No,
I mean,
like
this is everything.
Selectman O'Neill's suggestion that we get pre-COVID data. I think that's what you were alluding to.
More data is always helps smooth out the lines and the trends, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so.
A bigger sample size is always best.
I see it's a plateau. I mean, the line's relatively flat. It's got the same dips in it all 3 years in a row. Seems to drop in February for some reason.
if,
Probably because I'm not home.
if you turn to
Tax season.
page,
I throw it out in Danvers.
if you turn to page 3,
But
this is where costs in trash collection are going, not just in our contract, in everyone's contracts. And that is why, if you look at the state website, you will see that everyone is ahead of us right now in moving this budget buster outside the budget. So we can certainly accommodate our taxpayers with a certain amount of trash removal, but there is no feasible way with Prop 2.5% to manage this cost with an unlimited trash collection. It will cause us to cut other town budgets. And so our budget, $20 million, 65% of it is for the schools. Then, okay, the rest of it, well, we have our liability insurance, health insurance, pension assessment, fixed other costs. So maybe there's about $2 million, $2 to $3 million at best, available, maybe just $2 million, available to the departments. The police department is probably the largest budget, and then we have increasingly smaller budgets, all vying for a piece of that tax dollar. And look at this cost sheet and understand the reality that in year 5, if we do nothing, it's very realistic to expect that we will have a trash cost of $1 million if we do nothing. I mean, just ballpark it in your head. It's very easy to do, looking at the collection cost and the disposal costs. And trust me, I've looked across other towns' data. It's not different. It's just a matter of how do you want to package it. West Newbury went to a system where now everybody gets one, I believe it's a 64-gallon trash can, and they get another 64-gallon recycling can, and I believe they can put an additional recycling can out if they want. That's what the town is providing for in the tax rate. That's what they can manage. And I think that's what I'm trying to support. So if we want to talk about this in an additional meeting, fine. I can certainly give more data to Bill. I'd be glad to give these ginormous files to you by email if you'd like, Dan, if you want to go through them all. It's a lot of data, but it all says the same thing. I mean, this sheet alone kind of tells the story of what we're trying to manage. you know, and that's the problem. It doesn't fit in a budget that's controlled by Prop 2.5 and new growth.
Go ahead, Dan.
I see it as, basic town function. If there's certain things that, was it philosophical or ideological, but I want the town to pick up my trash, educate my kids, fill the potholes, plow the snow, and if my house is on fire, maybe send a truck over, okay? So, do we need all the other bells and whistles in town? Depends on whether or not your kid plays Little League or soccer, or you got a boat to put on the boat ramp. So those are accessories. We spend, 28 grand on muck raking, for example. Comes out of the CPA funds, but it's still your tax dollars and mine, and you call it a ham sandwich, it's still a bill. So, I want my trash picked up, okay? I think it's like flushing my toilet. I mean, you can go to a 1.6 gallon toilet, or you can go with a 6 gallon toilet. It's the same amount of water usage, So it just depends, yeah, can we all conserve and stop wasting? Everywhere I go, it's like, I'll turn down the bag. Do you want a bag? I went to the hardware store. Do you want a bag? No, because I just don't throw it out when I get home. So we can all modify behavior to some degree, but we can't completely. And I don't want more user charges that you're going to stick people with $3 for a purple bag at Town Hall. It's inconvenience. I don't want to come down here. I don't want to waste my time doing it. I want it built into my $9,000 or $10,000 real estate tax bill. So,
Well, then what do you want to cut to pay for your 3 or 4 barrels? Here's the point. Let me just finish.
What I voted against tonight, not adding more payroll and pension and benefits, and just stop increasing the bureaucracy, as I've referred to it, and do it less. Do it less. So, we want more VC parking. We want more environmental protection. We want all of these things, and I want my trash picked up, because I'm going to throw out the same amount of stuff. I told the world that we live in, Massachusetts, in the United States, stops putting everything in a plastic container, right? Which is recyclable, I get it. But what else is in the trash? I mean, chicken bones? What am I going to do? I could put it in the backyard
Selectman
incinerator, or
McDonald,
I'm going to bury it in my yard?
If you could, the focus here is that we have.
I don't want to go to 2 barrels. I'd compromise on 3 and see how it goes, but I'm not going to half. I'm not going to half.
Well, you may not have the votes to get to that.
Well,
My point to you.
might not either. We haven't
Okay,
got there yet.
I know that.
Dan, hold on. Kathy, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I feel that my responsibility on this board to the taxpayers of the town is to implement the budget as voted at town meeting, and to make sure that we, as best as possible, stay within balance, so that we don't have to cut a conservation agent that we need, so that we don't have to cut administrative coordinator hours that we need. So I feel that the amount of money spent on the town services is minuscule. It's far below what we should be spending. And the amount of money that we will spend if we allow this to go uncontrolled and unaddressed is, I think, irresponsible of us, because we can try some of these avenues. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I can give you the 216 data. It's pretty similar to the 219 data. We've been doing this amount of tonnage for a while. It's not just the pandemic. It is what it is. The town has grown. People are piling things on top of their trash cans. The towns that have implemented go through an informational program. It's not that we want to be a militant town government. We want to work with the townspeople. We want to get them engaged, and we want to ask them to help us do this. So I think the first step is to pick a date and start to inform, to explain why these costs are going up so much, to provide explanation that it's not because we don't want them to have the ability to throw things out. It's because the cost is escalating so much faster than we're allowed to escalate our town budget. Water and sewer, yeah, you can flush your toilet as much as you want, because the water and sewer commissioners can raise the rates. They can raise the water rates. We are controlled on the tax rate. We are controlled unless we go for an override. We can't sit here and vote a higher tax rate to get more money to pay this contract. If we wait till halfway through the year and find out, we're in trouble. So I'm asking the the board to please take a close look at this. If there's other information you feel that I've not included, I've tried to include what I think is critical, ask me, because I have a ton of information. I
Okay, do you
just didn't know.
want to give everybody time to look this over, and we'll
Sure.
put this on the discussion at the next meeting? Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next up, zero waste bags.
It's the same thing, pretty much. They're kind of the same,
There they are.
yeah. So, we can skip.
Zero waste bags. Read all of the bag they're looking at, and with $1 going to the town of Groveland. Monday night hours discussion. It was mentioned at one point that when do we want to open up the town hall on Monday nights, like it's been done forever, really.
It's in our
So-
town bylaw, too.
That we stopped the Monday night hours when basically when the town hall was closed. And now we're starting to open up the town hall, and the departments have been asking about when we're going to open up the town hall again on Monday nights. That was their question. And it seems like at some point we're going to have to open them up. Anybody got any feelings on that? Jason?
No, not really.
Dan?
After Labor Day, I think summer's over at some point, and it's just, back to school, the cold air comes in, and I'd suggest September.
Kathy?
I guess, I know Selectman O'Neill raised some questions about vaccinations, and I did ask the Board of Health if they're going to have any of those test kits that we all got emailed about. I don't know that we have those instant test kits. So I know that our bylaw says that we have Monday night hours, 6:30 to 8. I know that school boards right now, today, even this week, Pentucket is discussing whether to have mask mandates or not in school. I'd sort of like to wait to see how the school year opens and what they're going to be doing inside the school buildings and what other.
That would be after Labor Day.
Right, and also, what are other towns doing? Have we done a survey of, can we get an idea of, like, not big cities, but small towns like us? Well, have they opened up evening hours already or not? I mean, the meetings are open, right? Anybody can come to our meeting or planning board meeting, right? I mean, are the meetings all in person yet or not? Are we still Zoom, some boards are Zooming? And they're open to the public. The public could come to a meeting if they have to or if they want to, right? So they have access to their boards. I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about how other towns
Well,
are
let's do,
approaching it.
I'll work with you on that. We'll do a survey of everybody. You had something? No. Bill?
Like I said the last time, when the selectmen meetings go back to their originally scheduled time at 6:30, I'm fine with whenever that happens.
Okay. Dan, you got anything else? You mentioned Labor Day, after Labor Day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the natural change of seasons here.
Let's keep this on the agenda.
So I'd like to go back to later. I mean, we're at 5:30. I like the way it was back in the day, 6:30, and town hall stayed open a little bit late. So if somebody couldn't get out of work, they can come in one night a week and get some service that they might not have to be able to get 9 to 5 if they have a job and off schedule hours or out of town. So there are people that fall into that category, and it'd be nice if one night a week they could stop in and do what they want to do in person. So I think it ought to be open at some point, go back to normal, whatever that is. But, what seemed to work for years, not to fall back on, just the way it was, but.
Bill?
I was just thinking that suddenly we are one of the counties in Massachusetts that is at substantial risk again.
Oh.
Not high, but substantial. I just want to caution everybody that the virus dictates more than we do. So things can change in a heartbeat with what we're dealing with.
Okay, Jason, you have anything to add?
Nope.
No, Kathy?
No, I just feel that, if we could wait for not just after Labor Day, let the school districts open and see how that's going, see what the risk factor is, because I would wonder how many people would come out at night if the risk factor is high anyway.
Well, it doesn't sound like we're ready to make a consensus tonight. Both Dan's suggestion after Labor Day and Kathy's suggestion after the school starts, which was around Labor Day, we can address it. Let's put that off for 2 meetings, right? The first meeting after Labor Day. Next, closing the treasurer's office for 1 hour during the day. And this was mentioned so that the treasurer had time to reconcile the books. Do we want to take a vote on allowing her to close the office for an hour during the day? Catherine, you had something to weigh in?
I mentioned it to the consultant treasurer, and she said that the night that she suggested that to the board, that the board voted to allow it already.
We did.
I didn't go back to verify that, but she did tell me.
Okay.
That information.
All right, so
Oh, cross it off,
we're all set on that.
done,
Okay, and you can thank her for reminding us.
done.
We got the ESSR school district funds. Hopefully, we can make that short. Kathy, I know you were at that meeting. Who else was there?
Jason was with me, and Ruth Rivard, and Ellen.
All right, can you just give us a synopsis, quick synopsis of what that was all about?
Nice.
Thank you.
The quick synopsis is the ESSER funds are no longer available for the towns. So they took the $250,000 we used to balance the budget back. Greg was working some figures. He sent this out today. So instead of coming up with 250,000, the town of Groveland's gonna be expected to come up with 111.
Okay,
So that leaves us roughly $140,000 short in what we submitted as our budget.
and this is, reading from this, this is contingent upon that the district include transportation revenue from the state and make additional cuts totaling $250,000 from the current budget. If they agree to this, the change in the town's assessment would be, as you mentioned, $111,657
Right, and their
from
meeting is
Groveland, an
tomorrow.
increase. Should the school committee agree with this recommendation, new assessment letters will be sent out this week. And do you remember when the school committee meeting was?
It's tomorrow night,
Tomorrow night.
yes.
So we should be getting that back quickly.
Correct. I just by way of explanation, the thing that I still have a concern about, and I tried to clarify it at the meeting, as you know, and I still can't quite come up with a reasonable way to explain it to our taxpayers, but the $876,000 of ESSER funds that were going to the Pentucket School District are still going. They have lost no money. What they were allowed to do, and we did check this with the state several times, all the way through and up until our town meeting when it was voted, as to take 75% of those ESSER funds, then if a town in that district had a foundation formula that had increased due to the change in this formula, had it increased like more than, 30%, I think, they were allowed to then allocate some of this revenue as an offset to the assessment. So both Merrimack and Groveland qualified for the offset, totaling around $550,000 roughly between the two towns. Now, what happened was the Senate supported this. It was put to, I believe, a subcommittee. A subcommittee changed this with absolutely no consideration or concern for these regional school districts, of which we're one. And so North Shore Tech did the same thing for their towns as well. We're not the only regional school district that is getting impacted. I don't know if North Shore Tech has enough resources to not have to assess again, but Pentucket is saying that unless the towns can come up with additional funding, they will have to make additional cuts. For me, it's hard to understand just because that money was an offset to our assessment. So they were giving that money to us, and now they can't, and they're still getting the money, but we have to pay more. I'm having a little trouble with that one. Still thinking on that one. I certainly do not blame the towns or the school district for this situation. I put the blame squarely on whatever subcommittee decided to make such a decision after town meetings in these rural areas had already ended. And I'm not positive of this, but if 2 out of the 3 towns can afford this, and West Newbury certainly can, because I believe their assessment is going down. So they don't have to revote anything, so all they need is 1 town to vote this, I believe. Am I right, Bill? And this assessment's a go. I'm not positive. That's my thoughts. So even without us going to town meeting, is that correct?
I believe so.
I believe so, too.
Nothing we need to take a vote on this, or just for point of information and for some thought down the road.
Maybe
That we're
go
gonna
to
have to
the,
come up with 111,000.
Well, either that or we take our case to the State House and ask them how, in the name of anything good, is this assessment correct? That West Newbury decreases by almost $100,000 and ours increases by almost $112,000. This formula is whacked.
and that's on top of the increase that we funded an increase at town meeting. That's to be understood. This is not, the budget increased at town meeting. We were able to support that.
I know, but
Yes.
maybe we should challenge this at the state level and say, show us how you came up with these numbers, because they don't make sense to us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's two components, right? There's the wealth factor and the how many students, right? Isn't that what it is?
I believe,
So let me get this straight. West Newbury got poorer, we got richer, Merrimack got richer, and we got more kids. Maybe we got more kids in the district.
can't have that many more kids.
But yeah, exactly.
Enrollment for all,
Been a building, boom going on, right?
Ms. Selectman
I just,
McDonald,
I agree with you. It's skewed. It's a seesaw here.
student
so
enrollment went down in all
Who's
3
got
towns.
the formula to Coca-Cola here? And then we're getting a bill for it.
Enrollment went down in all 3 towns during the COVID pandemic.
West Newbury's down 93. We're up 111.
And I agree with Bill.
I'd like an
We should
answer to that.
challenge this.
Why? How'd that happen?
Well, I think history was when you challenge it, sometimes they come up with a different figure.
Well, why don't we challenge it? I mean, is that for town
How do we-
council? Is that for Lenny Mara, or is
Bill,
it?
do you have any idea how we challenge it?
I don't. I really don't, but
Senator Tarr's office would be my suggestion. They assisted us before. And
think-
that's who I spoke to prior to this meeting. They're the most up to speed on this whole, what's happened here, because this money was there when we went to town meeting.
I know. It was there for all the towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts before they pulled this out from under the rug and left a lot of towns in the same predicament as we are, which is high and dry.
Yep. So,
How about if I speak with Greg LeBrecq and ask him what his recommendation is as far as how do we challenge this? And
Well, I don't know if we want to go.
Report with the supporting numbers. Like, show us the numbers. There has to be a report, or they just give you the number, it's like, okay, we'll pay that, duh,
no,
write you a check.
There has to be a formula, calculation, some kind of,
State auditor, does anybody look at it?
I've downloaded it. It's a very big document.
But it's gotta boil down to either higher wealth
or more people.
It's not quite that simple. That's the problem with it, because they calculate like wealth factor rates. It's the Department of Education that does this, not the Department of Revenue.
More suspect, and they probably throw in variables like, what color eyes do I have, So I just, all the more reason. If it isn't the wealth factor and the number of kids in the school, then it's arbitrary, and it might even be capricious, so somebody ought to look into it.
All right, let's look into, see if
Agreed.
we can get an
Yeah?
answer
Yeah.
on how we can
I'm past my
challenge it.
smell test.
Right. Mr. Chairman, if I could make a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I could draft an outline of a letter explaining, what this is causing, but my biggest concern is to make sure that we clearly understand that no matter what happens, we need to be able to set a tax rate. And I believe if we don't appropriate money for an assessment, I don't know that we can set a tax rate. So perhaps the accountant could answer that question. I want to make sure that if we're taking time to oppose this, which I think is fine, we should do that, that we don't do something else by mistake. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Unintended consequences.
Thank you. Yes, unintended consequences would make this worse.
All right, do you want to handle that? Letter you wanted to send out?
I'll draft something, but then I would like to know if perhaps the accountant does know, what would be the situation if, worst case scenario here, Merrimack goes and votes the money. West Newbury doesn't have to go to vote because they've over appropriated, right?
Yeah.
So you have 2 out of 3. If we don't go to town meeting because we don't know where to get the money from, or should we be planning on a town meeting no matter what so that we can set our tax rate even while we challenge it? That's just not maybe for tonight to decide, but you need to figure that out. That's important.
Mr. Chair.
Dan?
Why don't we reach out to Merrimack, seeing as they're on the same side of the equation as us? I've almost said the same side of the V, but if we're gonna challenge the state on this, maybe we can
Reach out to Carol.
reach out to Merrimack and say, hey, we're on the, we're both getting it. It doesn't make sense to me, so maybe they'll help.
Was this something that the school committee would pursue?
Yeah, me neither.
I think we ought to communicate with the school committee and say, what's up with this?
I did
And-
call
and
our
would
school
Merrimack
committee member.
in favor of looking into why. How did this happen and why?
And you, Kathy, you had conversation with one of the school committee members?
Right. I don't think that they're informed on this yet. I think they're being informed tomorrow night.
Okay.
So,
So we need to bring this up in a couple of weeks after they've been informed, and they might have our delegation, school committee members might be able to weigh in on this.
yes.
Do we want to invite them to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, we'll take care of that. Sure, go ahead. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I have various it wouldn't be all.
Okay, so we'll have the school committee weigh in on that and invite them into the next meeting when they get informed of what the change is. Select a representative to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and an alternate. I believe that that's not what this is. It's, we
Right.
need to decide on somebody for the Boxford, Georgetown, Groveland Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Planning Commission. And as noted right now, we're in Subregion 3, and Town Planner in Georgetown, John Cashel, is the representative for Region 3. And I think they're looking for a consensus to either stay with John or come up with an alternative. Rebecca, can you weigh in on this? Who's the representative to the Planning Commission? You are?
Yes.
For the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, I am.
You are. And who's the alternate? Rennie?
The alternate was originally Bob Ericellian, but after he retired, they have not appointed an alternate at this point in time.
Okay. So you're familiar with this as far as for Subregion 3? And it sounds to me like Georgetown Town Planner John Cashel has agreed to continue as the Region 3 representative of Boxford, Georgetown, Groveland, and Merrimack.
That is correct.
Okay. So we just need to draft a letter to the planning commission and to go along with appointing John.
No action would be required, actually. It was just a formality, and essentially, when you do a designation, all three communities have to sign a joint letter of support for the representative. So it wouldn't just be one community making the appointment, it would be all three. Or,
Okay,
sorry,
so-
all four, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So when I reached out to the executive director, he said no action was necessary at this point in time.
I'm sorry, no,
No action was necessary from the Board of Selectmen at this point in time.
okay, all right, so
Good.
no action necessary. Thank you very much. Moving right along, police union contract. I think that just came back, Catherine, within the last few days.
Yes, finally. I had to reach out to their representative a couple of times. I guess this was on some kind of PDF, and she had to transfer it to a Word document. But now it is here in its entirety.
And this is here for, just basically for our signing.
Yes, we've already agreed to the terms of the conditions, which was 1-year contract, 2% increase, and an increase in the detail pay from 55 an hour to 60.
So we'll,
And everything else stayed exactly the same, no changes.
we didn't vote with this yet. We didn't vote it because we didn't receive it, so we'll need a vote to accept the police contract.
I make a motion to accept the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Groveland and the Massachusetts COP Local 420 patrol officers.
Motion, and is there a second?
I'll second
Jason
that.
seconds it. Any further discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
And thank you to the patrolmen and to Jennifer for getting this done so expeditiously. Appreciate the effort and the hard work on your part.
Okay, old business. Jason, you got anything?
No.
Kathy?
Let me just think.
Old business.
Yeah, I know, old business. So Dan and I are still actively working on the treasurer issue. We're pursuing leads. And we may have something to report in a week or so. Fine.
Okay.
And let me just think, was there something else? Oh, and the other two unions cannot meet on September 1st. That was the union, Teamsters representative said he was not available, so we're seeking some alternate dates to move that forward, Jason and I. So when he has a date available, we'll try to set a meeting. I think that's it.
Okay, well, give us a range,
Arrange on what?
the dates that, you can't meet on September 1st?
Right, we offered September 1st. He said he had a meeting. He has not offered another date. So what I was going to do was confer with the KP attorney, get a couple of dates from him, because I think Jason and I are fairly flexible, and I'll reach back out again, because I would like to see this settled,
I
so,
don't,
Go that
yeah,
route.
you're gonna send that,
yeah, I'll send an email to Attorney Mazer and ask him for 2 more dates that he
All right.
might be able to do.
Bill, you have anything on our old business?
Old business, no.
Dan? Old business? None. Selectmen's time. Dan?
I got nothing new.
Bill?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. First of all, I'm sure you're all aware of the 2 fires that happened at the new construction of the middle high school. I want to assure you, based on the meeting I attended last week, there will not be one additional penny added to the taxpayers for those 2 fires. The persons responsible have been terminated from the job, never to come back. And I have been given multiple assurances that the corrective actions needed to take place to prevent these situations from happening again have been implemented by W.T. Rich, the main contractor, and I'm assured that the repeat of this would be extremely highly unlikely. As far as time, it did not push back the project timetable significantly. However, wherever the timetable is affected, W.T. Rich has stated they will use their overtime at no additional cost to the taxpayer to make up for any time lost. The CEO has also agreed to come before this board at any time in order to answer questions related to those two events last week. If you would like, I'll let them know at the next meeting we have that that's your desire, and we can make a plan to bring that person in. The second thing is, I got an email from town of West Newbury regarding a Seabrook preparedness evacuation plan. And it included a lot of towns, but strangely enough, it did not include Groveland. So I'd like to know why this imaginary line that you can't see between West Newbury and Groveland includes them and not us.
I know the answer.
Kathy? Yeah, I do too, but go ahead.
I worked for the electric company, so yeah, it's an arbitrary decision based on mileage from the nuclear plant. They just, I wouldn't stay in Groveland if there was a problem at the Seabrook plant. I'd leave. But the decision, it's regulated. It's a regulated nuclear plant. The decision is made, they draw the line, this is who gets notified. This is who gets evacuated.
Do we have, so
No?
Groveland cannot demand that we be included in this evacuation plan? We just, put our head between our knees and kiss our butts goodbye? Is that the plan for Groveland? With this imaginary line, it's just an imaginary line that goes from West Newbury, Groveland. This imaginary line, they got a plan. On this side of the imaginary line, we got nothing. That's how it goes?
Like floodplain.
We weren't within the mileage there was no part of Groveland that was in the mileage
Right.
for the evacuation plan. And I believe if they look at the plan, there's a section of West Newbury that's not, but as long as there's one part of it, for instance, like Haverhill, Rocks Village is part of it, part of Rocks Village is part of the plan. But there's no part of Groveland within the mileage parameters set up. So,
So there's nothing we can do to demand to be part of that preparedness plan?
Dan, go ahead.
As silly as it might be, I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by this police contract here. Can I approach Mr. Chairman?
I need a second read on this, because I'm seeing things.
Is there a typo?
Can we hold that until after we're done with this, and then we'll
Yes,
go back to that?
Yeah. I understand his point. Does the wind stop? Let's say the radiation is coming south, it stops right at the border? I mean,
I don't know. I
maybe
mean,
it does. The wind changes direction.
it just caused me for concern that I see all these towns. I say this
Selectmen-
imaginary line, it stops the radiation, it
I-
stops all,
No.
everything.
Selectman O'Neill.
Kathy, go
What I-
ahead.
Thank you. I would just suggest that you confer with our emergency management officer and see if through FEMA or something, they have any ideas, because certainly if there were a significant problem at that nuclear plant, it would affect more than the mileage that they're talking about.
I would,
We all know that.
10,
So
15, so.
I would speak with our emergency management person on that.
I will do that, thank you. I have nothing else.
Dan wants to go back to clarification in the contract.
Yeah, I don't know, need a second set of eyes. I get tired, you know.
It says employees who may choose to opt out of the town's health insurance plan shall receive an annual opt-out bonus of $81,000 for single coverage and $82,500 for family coverage. I don't know, should that be a dollar sign instead of an 8?
That's gotta be a misprint.
You know, I don't want the insurance, give me 80 grand, I'll take the deal.
There you go.
Yeah,
It is.
8, space 2, yeah, this is a typo, obviously.
It's a dollar sign. Supposed to be a dollar sign. It's
I would hope so.
$1,000 and $2,500.
I will reach out to Jennifer and make sure that this is page 11.
Can we proofread that and I'll get back to you, but what else is in there?
Well, I think you should proofread it.
I'll proofread it. I mean,
There
I
you
could
go.
spot the bad number from like, a mile
That's
out,
why I think you should do
That's
it.
all I do is look at numbers, but it's like 81,000 to opt out. I'll take it. Do I get health insurance?
If,
I don't want it.
that's page 13.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
That threw me for a curveball here.
since this is your bailiwick, maybe you can tell me if there's any other typos, I'll reach out to her.
Left or right through the whole thing, I mean, I just,
Can you reach out to me if you see any other typos?
yeah, can we just like stall this and I'll get back here within a day?
Well, everything should be the same as last year.
It's
So if
approved.
that's a typo from last year's contract, then it's merely a formality.
They're not trying to enforce that.
Jason, anything on the
Think
selectmen
so.
time?
We ain't got it.
Thank you.
Kathy? think
I just
asked you
was,
when you said-
I know the American Relief Act is still like under the works and all, but I know that we had several departments that worked throughout the pandemic that were unable to work remotely because of the nature of the work they do, our public safety, water and sewer, and our highways. And I just didn't know if we were considering recognizing that in any shape or form now that the emergency declaration is lifted.
I don't know. You want an agenda item on that at some point?
When we have information, I mean, I don't want to just blindly discuss it. I'd like to consider it, that's all. I think we all need to consider it. That these departments went to work when other avenues of work were permitted to stay home. And I'm not saying they're the only ones. I know there's other industries that also went to work. But I guess the American Relief Act gives us the ability to recognize that.
I don't know, we'll see if we can get some answers on that.
Okay.
I don't have anything on the selectmen's time. Items not reasonably anticipated. Rebecca, apologize for holding you here this long. And this is where we'll bring up a vote to amend the selectmen's policy to allow a trade-in on the vehicles, particularly the Council on Aging van, see if we can lower the cost on that. Can somebody want to make a motion to amend that selectmen's policy?
I'll make the motion to amend the policy to allow for the discretion to trade in the vehicle.
Thank you.
I'd like a moment to read the policy.
Thank you.
So this is just for vehicles under 10,000, and we think this van applies to under 10,000?
Oh, for sure.
The trade-in value that they had was for 4,000, I believe.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I don't know what the actual value of the vehicle is. I asked the Council on Aging Director if she could take a look. I didn't know if there was a way to get the value of that, like a Kelly Blue Book, like you would for a regular vehicle. But they had it valued at like either $3,000 or $4,000, so it would qualify.
What year is that van? It's like 20 years old, isn't it?
I think so. I'm not
It's
too
old.
sure.
I bet you the actual cash value in that is probably $100. It's
Could
scrap,
be.
salvage. Everything over that is just a gesture of kindness, I think.
The contract that, I guess, we had to start over again on, did they have a trade-in value on that?
They did have a trade-in value of about, I think, $3,000 or $4,000, which was taken off the price of the
They're
actual
generous,
bus.
Or they just bump up the sales price?
I don't know. That's why I
No,
don't, typically, like, if you were trading in your own vehicle, you'd have a Kelly Blue Book value with the mileage and the make and all that other stuff, so I don't know what the actual value would be.
The board, I think it's worth a shot. If we can get a credit of $3 or $4 grand, it's worth a shot. If it's worth $100, as you say, it might be then.
The only value is trade-in value.
Yeah, right.
On a vehicle like that.
Yeah, no one else is.
No one
they'll
else is
just
gonna
junk
want it.
They'll say,
Yeah.
give me the title, and maybe they charge you to tow it.
It's going straight down to be crushed.
So we'll trade it in, let them deal with it.
Exactly.
It'd save us time, if anything.
And liability, if anything should happen.
So do we
Okay.
need to change this?
Motion on the floor to amend the selectmen's policy. I don't see, oh yeah, it was Moved by the Board of Selectmen, November 21st, 2016.
Where's
So-
the amendment going?
Where's the what?
Where is the amendment going?
We put it anyway. We
Mike?
put a,
Mr. Chair, my suggestion was we amend it to allow for this.
yeah, we can make
On these
it,
basis.
we can make it, Section 4, amend the policy to allow trade-in on the Council on Aging van. There's a motion.
I don't,
Was there a second on that? I don't remember one.
So the policy itself would read that?
it's going to be contradictory now. Yeah.
Just for the Council on Aging van.
So you're amending the policy for, oh,
We're going to amend the policy to allow the trade-in on the Council on Aging van. That's the way you wanted it?
however, I don't know whether or not that meets the legal ramifications, but I would just make it general that trade-ins are permissible after review by the Board of Selectmen kind of thing, instead of like specific to the Council on Aging van. That way, you leave yourself open, like you said, for a case-by-case basis without actually naming the case that you're going to be changing it for.
Thank you. I knew Jason was going to suggest that word, exact wording.
That was brilliant.
Right after she did.
What's that?
Right after she did.
Exact, you took the words right out of his mouth. Thank you very much for that.
She's good.
Could we read that back?
What she said.
No, I want to know.
To add section 4, amending the policy to allow trade-in of vehicles?
Trade-ins are permissible after review by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Dan withdrew his motion, his original motion.
I don't think
and,
that's the right motion.
Adopted hers.
I knew you would. Jason, thank you. Jason, you seconding that?
Well, I do have a question on where, on the policy.
It should be under here, under section 2. Under section 2 is where it should be, because that's where it talks about how you can get rid of property that has a resale or salvage value of less than $10,000. And I'm assuming no other department wants that van. So we have an A, B, and a C. I would,
Add a D.
I'm looking at, let me just make sure what it says, set forth. Nope, I would maybe eliminate section 2 and rewrite that. Let me look at it one more time.
It's too
I would-
cumbersome for this.
It's
For this.
very, very cumbersome.
This.
If
Very
I would
cumbersome.
make a recommendation, I would make number 2 the trade-in and then keep 2 but add it as 3, because those give you the mechanisms as to which you can dispose of the surplus item. So you do need those 3 mechanisms in place, because the trade-in can be associated with one of those items.
It's under 3.
So we're going to make this number 2 becomes number 3. You go from number 1 to number 2 is then going to say, if the surplus property is to be used for trade-in? That's what you're going to say? I think it gets really muddy here.
If, in the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, the board chooses to allow for the trade-in, then we can override that. I mean, it's just simply what we want to do here. We want to override that. It's not cost-effective.
So the trade-in is not just relative to vehicles, too, it's a relative to equipment. So that's why I was saying if you add it to a separate category, it will encompass all without being too restrictive.
So we're going to have a separate category. Well, category 1 is goods.
Dan,
and
go
equipment.
ahead.
Could I suggest that we just add 4, okay? The
No.
Board of Selectmen reserves the right to,
Catherine, finish that forum that you had down there.
Reserves the right to allow trade-in.
allow trade-ins on equipment in its discretion
On a case-by-case basis.
on a case-by-case basis, you know, basically despite the foregoing.
Okay. There was a motion. Is there a second?
Second that.
Now you second it. Any further discussion? You want Catherine to read the article?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just feel that, I'm assuming that perhaps this was written for a reason. The town attorney probably looked at it. And I would be fine with allowing the chairman to proceed and get from town council what needs to change here with a vote from us tonight
Well,
to
there's a
support you in
motion on the
that.
floor.
I can't vote that because I don't know whether that does the right
There's a
thing.
motion on the floor.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
It's discretionary with the board. I mean, we're talking $3,000 or $4,000 to go get legal counsel. It's an opinion. It's not a legal issue. It's an opinion unless there's something that prohibits it,
Is there,
right?
Can I just respond,
go
please?
ahead, yep.
Thank you. So what I'm saying, Dan, is that I'm assuming that this was developed for a reason, because I mean, under $10,000 could be down to like $5. I'm not sure if this is overly cumbersome right from the get-go.
It had to do with the fire truck.
Right, so I feel like if we ask Bill Hewig, if the chairman just calls him and asks him the question, how do we put in the words to be able to use a trade-in? He can look at it right away and tell you where to put it, rather than us sitting here trying to do it by ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
There's a motion on the floor. Did you want to read that again? So
It's a
we had
mess,
too
but
much
I'll try.
discussion here, so some people may have forgotten.
The motion was to amend the policy to allow trade-ins that would be permissible on a case-by-case basis after review by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? None.
that's-
All in favor? 4 in favor, opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
One abstention.
I don't think you have it right.
Just clarify, that is for items under $10,000. Anything over $10,000 must follow chapter 30B.
Yep. Thank you for sticking around.
Yep.
Uh,
We're done.
Anybody got anything else on items not reasonably anticipated? None. Correspondence. We have email from Joe Demore regarding the Town Administrator Search Committee. We have an email from Bill Hewig regarding special Board of Selectmen meeting on 8/10/21. There a motion to adjourn
Motion,
at,
8:06?
looks like 8:05.
Okay, 8:05. Motion to adjourn at 8:05 PM.
Second.
Motion and a second. No discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. 5-0. Thank you very much. Mike, thanks for coming in. Thanks for weighing in on